Okay, picking up where we left off on page 132, we're talking about near-field communication. It may actually be something that's going to be really super duper in the future, so that'd be something that you want to keep your eye on. Okay, on page 134, they talk about how to physically secure a piece of computer equipment. You know, and there should be some obvious things about, you know, door locks and things, you know, bars on windows, things of that nature. But specifically, they're talking about like cable locks. You've probably seen these where there'll be like a hole or some sort of a protection in a laptop or a server that allows you to put a cable through it. And there's a brand name called a Kensington lock. It's a specific design thing where you could put a lock in and lock it, and then you have a loop of cable that you can put around the chair, in the leg of a table or some sort. So anyway, cable locks are a pretty cool way of doing it. Now let's talk about let's leave the physical world and talk about the real world where things can get damaged. The most prevalent way that portable machines get damaged is they get wet. Okay, so you drop them in the toilet, you take them out in the rain, some goofball pushes you in the swimming pool. You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, you end up getting your machine wet, and it's basically ruined. Okay, now the other types of things for non-portable devices, desktop machines, is electrical power issues. And so there's a problem with both having too much voltage, a voltage spike coming in, and then too less voltage, an under voltage. And oddly enough, a lot of manufacturers spend a great deal of time trying to clamp down on the problem with electrical spikes and don't do hardly anything with regard to under voltage. And so, yes, your machine could get damaged for both. Okay, now you've probably seen surge suppressors, right? You can go to practically anywhere. You can buy these things at the grocery store, and it's just a strip of electrical outlets, typically with an on-off switch, and it plugs into an outlet and provides some sort of power surge. Now, I will confess, the ultra cheap ones that you buy at the grocery store are probably not doing all that much. You probably need to spend, more than, $18.95 for a surge suppressor. $30 for a surge suppressor might sound like it's expensive, but on the other hand, consider it like insurance. You sure wish you'd had it. Now, I have, it's not even a computer. I have it's a wine cooler, and it sits on the desk in the kitchen. And it holds a couple bottles of wine and keeps them at the right temperature, and I'll plug it in. And I went through about 3 of those suckers. I mean, it would break, I'd go get another one, it would break, I'd go get another one, and it was warranty, but that's not really the point. Until one day I went, maybe I should put a surge suppressor on here. So I went and got a surge suppressor that replaces the electrical plate. So taking a screwdriver, I pull the plate off of the electrical outlet and plug this guy into it. So it doesn't take up any space. Put the screw back in and plug my wine cooler into this new surge suppressor. And I've had that same surge suppressor for years now. So hooray! I discovered what the problem was. Is that those guys were apparently very, very sensitive to electrical issues and kept blowing out. Okay. So surge suppressors are pretty cool. But that's not going to help you for one of those under voltage, a brownout, where the electrical power drops below an acceptable value. That can do an awful lot of damage. So for that, you need an uninterrupted power supply, a battery backup. Now, once again, these things are not terribly expensive. You can get small ones that are designed just to kind of help you with a little blip, or you can get massive suckers. The size of a computer case, right? 2 or 3 feet tall, and big monstrous things. Big heavy batteries that run your entire computer system for hours if the power went out. So you really kind of have to determine what it is you have and how expensive it is and what are you trying to protect and what do you have to keep running. So for example, I have an uninterrupted power supply, and so I run my computer, the monitor, and the keyboard, and the mouse. The things I need to operate the machine. But if the power went out, I really want my internet connection to be up, because I have cable internet connection. So when the power goes out, I don't necessarily lose my internet. I mean, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. So I run all my network devices. So all my network devices, I don't run the printer, for example, because I figured, well, hell, if it's the middle of an electrical out, I just won't print. You know, that's no big deal. So I've sized it appropriately. I don't have a gargantuan one because I don't need it. I don't need to run my machines for an hour, and if the power is out, I need 20 minutes. Enough for me to realize that the power is not coming back on to go in here and shut things down. Okay, so an uninterrupted power supply, a UPS. Again, very, very handy thing. Now, if you bought a $500 laptop at some garage sale somewhere, maybe you don't need a $500 UPS, right? You know, if it breaks, you just go to another garage sale and buy you another one. So again, it depends on your investment. Okay, on page 136, they talk about the health-related issues, and we're talking about health to humans, not health to the computer. And so the carpal tunnel syndrome, where you do something over and over and over and over, and you have repetitive stress in one particular area. So repetitive strain injury, which is the proper term for that, is a big deal in corporate America. They want to make sure that you stop and do exercises to stretch your arms and legs and things of that nature to make sure you don't have a health issue with using their piece of equipment or your computer. Computer vision syndrome. This is crazy. Computer screens are generally kind of bright, and people have discovered that the eyes kind of start itching and dry out. And what's happening is you don't tend to blink as much for some reason. And so, it's a serious issue, a serious health issue associated with eye strain associated with your computer screen. Because after that, you've been playing a game for 3 hours, and you turn around and say, well, let me read a book. And you open the book and you go, man, I can't see that. Yeah, it could damage your eyes pretty bad. Ergonomics is the science of figuring out how and where the body ought to be positioned to do works. One of the things that I learned, this is kind of a strange story. I bought a new chair, and is desk type chair, and it came with a set of instructions that said, here's how you adjust the tension on the chair. And I went, So I actually stopped and I read the instructions. Isn't it amazing? I actually read the instructions. And it had a really cool thing. It says, sit in your chair like you would normally, and then raise your feet off the ground. Okay? And if the chair moves, then it's not tensioned correctly. In other words, if you're using muscle anywhere to keep the chair either move forward or move back to the position that you want it in, if it takes muscle to do that, then your chair is not adjusted correctly. Cool. Okay. So ergonomics is the science of doing all those kind of things. They figure out, how high the keyboard ought to be and things of that nature. And then, of course, there's technology addiction, and I can't help you much with that. But yeah, some people just go nuts. They'll find a video game that they love, and they'll spend hours and hours and hours and hours. And you hear these stories about these gaming cafes, typically in Japan, but I'm sure that's just stereotypical bullshit. Where some poor kid will go in there and spend days, and he'll end up dying because he forgot to eat. Yeah, it's a serious issue. Okay. Talking about ergonomics one more time. So yeah, there are some rules. Somebody sat down and spent an awful lot of time trying to figure out what the viewing angle should be for a monitor, how far it ought to be, how high off the ground should the keyboard be, and all those kind of all these kind of things. Having your elbows at 90 degrees and your feet flat on the ground. So, adjust the height of the chair to match all these kinds of things. It's kind of big business. Okay. So we're at the end. Page 139 basically is a summary of all the things we just talked about. On page 140 is a study guide and those terms. And those are pretty good. If you can go through there and answer all those questions, you're good to go. If not, keep going. They got the checkpoint after that, where it goes through a series of things that you can do to make sure you've got all this picked out. Okay? All right. That's all there is, and I'll see you guys again in some other chapter.